Sir, you are in violation of the neighborhood regulations and will be fined $50,000 for grass grown too tall, a mailbox painted in an unapproved color, and, most notably, a garden gnome deemed inappropriately humorous. The notice was carefully laminated, with a detail that nearly made me drop my coffee mug, a faint image of a bald eagle, holding pruning shears, staring as seriously as if it were on a national mission. I read it 3 times, standing barefoot in the driveway, coffee in hand, unsure if I was awake or being dragged into a bad comedy. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I, Ethan Carter, a 38-year-old civil engineer, stood there in Sunnyvale Meadows, Florida, feeling like someone had just thrown a baseball at my face. The sun was just rising, golden light filtering through the oaks, making the suburban neighborhood look like a perfect postcard. But this moment was anything but perfect. At first, I thought it was a prank by my brother, who once wrapped my entire living room in Christmas paper just to mess with me. But no, this was real. And in that moment, I realized I was about to enter a battle I didn't start, but I swore I'd win. 3 weeks earlier, I was living peacefully, enjoying a fairly quiet life in a town straight out of a movie. I spent more time fixing city bridges and roads than worrying about the color of my window frames. I bought this house 10 years ago, after the previous owner, a retired highway contractor, left it to me at a steal. The house came with a yard, a workshop, and a strange clause in the ownership contract. I owned the main road leading into the neighborhood. Back then, I didn't think much of it. The road was well maintained, the neighbors were friendly, and there were no strings attached. At least, not until the new management took over last year, led by Linda Whitaker, the notorious control freak who, I'm convinced, sucks the oxygen out of any room she enters. Linda always wore mirrored sunglasses, drove an SUV she hadn't paid off, and had a voice that could strip paint off a battleship. Her hobby wasn't gardening or yoga, it was control. And unfortunately, I had become enemy number 1 on her blacklist. The letter arrived one morning, hand-delivered by a pimply teenager, Tommy, who looked like he'd been promised a gaming gift card if he got it to the right address. He sped up on his bike, skidded to a stop in front of me, kicking up dust, and shoved the envelope into my hand. "Good luck, sir," he stammered, voice shaking like he'd just delivered mail to a bandit, then pedaled off so fast I thought he might break a cycling record. I stared at the envelope, eyebrows furrowed. It bore the Sunnyvale Meadows logo, featuring an eagle holding hedge clippers, looking like it was designed by someone who'd just discovered Photoshop. The words "Violation Notice," "Urgent" were printed in bold red, with the ridiculous eagle watermark and seal below. I opened the envelope, still thinking it was my brother's prank. But when I pulled out the laminated paper inside, the first line read, "Total, $50,000. I read it again, then a third time, hoping the number would morph into 50 cents or an apology for a mistake. No such luck. The list of violations was as long as an indictment. Grass grown over 2 inches, aesthetic threat, a mailbox painted blue not approved, shrubs encroaching on the walkway, and the crowning offense, my garden gnome, Gus, was cited for being excessively whimsical and disruptive to community harmony. Gus, with his mischievous smile, red hat, and round belly, was a gift from my mom, and now it was being treated like a public menace. I stood there, barefoot, coffee cooling, one hand clutching the paper, feeling like I'd been slapped with a phone book. $50,000? I muttered, loud enough that a bird in a nearby tree stopped singing and looked at me like I'd lost my mind. For grass, a mailbox, and a gnome statue? This wasn't a mistake. This was a targeted hit from Linda, who decided to make me her punching bag. I muttered a curse, my voice echoing in the quiet air, and the bird fled like I'd just declared war. I went inside, set my coffee mug on the kitchen counter, and pulled the home purchase contract from the safe. As I flipped through it, reading each line with the focus of someone just hit with a $50,000 bill over a garden gnome, I uncovered a glaring truth. I owned the main road, and I'd never signed anything placing me under the HOA's authority. The feeling was like striking gold. I sat down, hands gripping the contract, a slow smile spreading across my face. Linda thought she could bully me, but she'd clearly picked the wrong guy. I'm not the type to open my wallet, write a check, and bow an apology just because of a guy like Gus. But I'm also not reckless. Before striking back, I wanted to make a small move, call it diplomacy if you will, not because I thought Linda would back down, but simply to see how much more she could tangle herself up. Know your enemy. Win every battle. I folded the purchase contract, tucked it carefully into a briefcase, finished my cold coffee, and drove to the neighborhood management office. The office, if you could call it that, was really just a flimsy trailer parked at the edge of the community, looking more like a mobile cookie stand than a place wielding power over an entire neighborhood. Outside the trailer, a faded sign read Sunnyvale Meadows HOA office for a harmonious community, which nearly made me laugh. Harmonious? With a $50,000 bill over grass and a gnome? I pushed open the door, a wind chime jangling like an alarm signaling the arrival of an outsider. Inside, the smell of burnt coffee mixed with cheap perfume, and a bulletin board was plastered with fines, from no bikes left in yards to no holiday flags except on approved days. Linda Whitaker sat behind a metal desk, wearing mirrored sunglasses despite the fluorescent lighting. Two other members, Carl and Marjorie, stood behind her like bodyguards in a B-movie. Carl, looking like a nervous substitute math teacher, glanced at me furtively. Marjorie, in a polo shirt with the HOA logo, stared at me like I just tracked mud into her house. Linda didn't bother looking up, just clicked her pen repeatedly like a judge about to hand down a death sentence. "Ah, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice sharp as a razor, "finally facing the consequences, are we?" I tried to stay calm, though in my head I imagined throwing my coffee mug at her ridiculous sunglasses. "I don't think I'm part of your HOA, Linda," I replied, placing my briefcase on the desk. "My property isn't in the original agreement, and I've never signed anything to join." She smirked, the kind of smirk that makes you suspect she just kicked a puppy and enjoyed it. "If you live here, you follow the rules," Linda said, clicking her pen faster. "That's how we keep this community beautiful." I slid a copy of the home purchase contract toward her, pointing to the road ownership clause. "Except, legally, I don't have to," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I own the main road into this neighborhood. Want to check?" Linda glanced at the contract, snorted, and pushed it back like I'd handed her a pizza flyer. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice rising like she was preaching. "If you want to appeal the fine, you'll need to submit a request to the board. We'll review it next quarter." Carl coughed lightly, eyes darting away, while Marjorie nodded like a puppet. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about grass, mailboxes, or Gus, my beloved gnome. This was about power. Linda wanted to make an example of me to scare anyone who dared challenge her. I took a deep breath, trying not to let my anger flare. "So you're fining me $50,000 for things I didn't agree to, on land I own, and now telling me to wait months for a review?" I asked, my voice a bit louder than intended. Linda smirked, the kind of smirk that says she knows she's got the upper hand. "Exactly," she said. "Or you can pay now and keep this neighborhood from being tarnished by your personal tastes." I laughed, not out of amusement but because her arrogance was so absurd. "Personal tastes?" I repeated, pointing toward the door. "You mean Gus, the gnome with a better smile than this entire board combined?" Carl nearly choked, but Marjorie glared at him, and he bowed his head like a scolded student. Linda stood, her sunglasses glinting under the lights. "You're testing us, Mr. Carter," she said, "and I promise you'll regret it." I gathered my contract, looked her in the eye, and said, "No, Linda, you're the one who'll regret it." I drove away from the office, adrenaline still pumping after the showdown with Linda Whitaker. Her smug smile, razor-sharp voice, and the way she dismissed my contract like a piece of junk mail only fueled my resolve. Linda wanted to play a power game? Fine, but I had an ace she didn't expect. The main road into Sunnyvale Meadows was mine. To be sure, I needed to verify the odd clause in my home purchase contract, and there was no better place than the county office, where every legal secret of the neighborhood was stored. I sped through the suburban streets, where lawns were trimmed like runways and every mailbox adhered to Linda's neutral color palette. The county office was a few miles away, in a drab concrete building that looked like it was built in the dinosaur era. Inside, the smell of old paper and floor cleaner mingled, and I was greeted by Mrs. Delaney, an elderly clerk with thick glasses and a voice so slow it felt like she was narrating a fairy tale. "What do you need, young man?" she asked, looking up from a towering stack of files. "I need to check my home purchase contract," I said, placing my briefcase on the counter. Specifically, the part about owning the road into the neighborhood. Mrs. Delaney raised an eyebrow, as if I'd asked to see a treasure map. She led me to a corner of the room filled with dusty iron shelves, pulled out a thick folder, and began flipping through pages at the pace of a napping turtle. She muttered, "That area used to be farmland, you know? Then a highway contractor bought it, built the main road." I nodded, trying not to fidget, though in my head I pictured Linda sitting in her trailer, clicking her pin and plotting to find someone else for hanging Christmas lights in the wrong color. Finally, Mrs. Delaney stopped, pointing to a yellowed page with my scrawled signature from 10 years ago. "Here it is," she said, her voice excited like she'd struck gold. "You own the main road, built in 1975 by the previous owner. No easement, no transfer of rights, nothing. The HOA's been using it for free ever since." I stared at the page, my heart pounding. The quirky clause I'd once shrugged off now shone like a beacon. I, Ethan Carter, owned the road that all of Sunnyvale Meadows depended on to get in and out. No agreement gave the HOA control over it. Linda and her minions had been driving on my road for a decade without paying a cent, and now they dared to send me a $50,000 bill over grass and Gus, my beloved gnome? It felt like finding a legal bombshell, and I knew exactly how to use it. I thanked Mrs. Delaney, who was still rambling about the land's history, and bolted to my car. Sitting in the cab, I held the contract, a grin spreading across my face like a supervillain who'd just hatched the perfect plan. Linda wanted to make me an example of submission? I'd make my road her nightmare. The idea of a toll booth sparked in my mind, not just for revenge but to send a message: no one gets to bully me on my own land. I called Uncle Frank, a retired contractor with a prankster streak bigger than the projects he'd built. "Uncle Frank," I said when he picked up, my voice so excited I nearly dropped the phone. "I need a toll booth for my road. Big, bold, like an amusement park, with automatic gates and everything." Frank laughed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You serious, kid?" he asked, his voice brimming with glee. "Damn right," I replied. "Linda Whitaker just declared war, and I'm going to make her regret sending that bill." After confirming my road ownership at the county office, I felt like I'd been handed a golden ticket to get back at Linda Whitaker. The toll booth idea wasn't just a way to annoy Linda, it was a declaration that I, Ethan Carter, wasn't someone to be pushed around on my own property. Within 2 days, the plan was in motion. Uncle Frank, with his construction know-how and love for pranks, brought in an old booth from an abandoned amusement park on the outskirts of Florida. It looked like a tiny, beat-up shack, speckled with silver paint, but we turned it into a masterpiece: a solar-powered automatic gate, a license plate scanner, and a small LED screen flashing "Welcome to Carter's Road." Frank and I worked under the humid Florida sun, digging concrete footings, running wires, and arguing over whether to paint the gate green or red. We settled on green to match Gus's free spirit, my beloved gnome, who was placed right beside the booth as a mascot. I printed signs on waterproof paper, in a font big as a billboard: "Private road, toll starts today, $3 per entry. HOA members, $15. Free if you sign that Ethan Carter is not in the HOA." I plastered the signs along the road, from lampposts to fences, and emailed the entire neighborhood, attaching a copy of my road ownership contract. If Linda wanted to play the rules game, I'd play by my own, and mine came with an automatic gate. That weekend, the toll booth was ready. I stood beside it, coffee mug in hand, Gus nearby with his mischievous grin, and waited. Within 10 minutes, I heard an engine roar. A shiny SUV, not yet paid off, screeched to a stop at the gate. Linda Whitaker stepped out, mirrored sunglasses glinting, her face red as a beet. "You can't do this," she screamed, pointing at the gate like it was a crime against humanity. "This is a public road." "Oh, but I can," I replied, tapping the sign. "Rules are rules, remember, Linda?" I smiled, trying not to laugh as she honked her horn, the sound blaring like a dying goose. Residents behind her started lining up, some honking, others poking their heads out windows, curious. Mr. Harold Brooks, a retired teacher with a penchant for wearing socks with sandals, pulled up in his ancient minivan right behind Linda. He raised an eyebrow, looked at the toll booth, then at me. "What's this about, Ethan?" he asked, his voice a mix of confusion and amusement. "Just taking back what's mine," I said, handing him a paper. "Sign here, confirm I'm not in the HOA, and you pass for free. Otherwise, it's $3, unless you're Linda, then it's 15. Harold chuckled, signed immediately, and I slapped a Carter free pass sticker on his windshield. "I got fined $50 for my sandals," he whispered. "Keep it up, kid." He drove through the gate, waving like he'd just won a card game. Linda, however, stood there, face flaming, hands on hips. "This is extortion," she shrieked, her voice so shrill I thought the car windows might crack. "You can't charge people to use this road." I leaned against the booth, sipping my coffee. "Check the county records, Linda," I said, my voice calm. "I own this road. Always have. And until now, I didn't mind sharing. She pointed at me, her red nails like hawk talons. You're extorting the entire neighborhood. I laughed, pointing to the booth's camera. Everything's recorded. Linda. Fully permitted. No one's forced to pay, they just can't trespass on my land without permission. Linda honked again, but the residents behind her were losing patience. Move it, Linda. Harold yelled from his car. I've got places to be. A few people drove around, paid the $3, and I logged their plates. Others, like Harold, signed for free passes, chuckling as they got their stickers. Linda finally drove off, the gate opening after she tossed $15 out her window, along with a curse. I picked up the cash, tucked it into a box, and looked at Gus. Good first day, huh, buddy? I said. My toll booth stood proudly on the main road, a gleaming symbol of defiance, with Gus the gnome presiding beside it like a tiny general. After the first showdown with Linda Whitaker, I knew she wouldn't sit quietly while I turned my road into a jab at her ego. But I didn't expect her to hit back so fast and dirty. Just days after the toll booth went up, I woke to find dozens of flyers plastered on lampposts, fences, and even my mailbox. Printed in glaring red, in a font big as a billboard, Community Alert, Ethan Carter, Highway Robber. At the bottom was Linda's signature, paired with the HOA's eagle with Clippers logo. I grabbed a flyer, scanned it, and nearly choked on my coffee, a habit I'd been running into lately. The flyer called my toll booth illegal extortion, accused me of holding residents hostage, and destroying the harmony of Sunnyvale Meadows. There was even a paragraph comparing me to a modern-day highwayman, as if I were standing there with a gun demanding wallets. I laughed, not out of joy, but because it was so ridiculous. Linda had clearly spent all night crafting this, and the result looked like an angry high schooler's essay. But she didn't stop at flyers. Linda unleashed a 2,000-word blog post on her personal page, calling herself the Shield of Sunnyvale Meadows. The post labeled me an urban vandal and claimed my toll booth was a private empire built on resident sweat. She even hired Tim Baxter, a reporter from the local paper whose readership was mostly retirees, to write a hit piece on me. The article, titled Toll Booth or Conspiracy, fabricated claims that I planned to raise the fee to $50 per entry and build a mansion with the profits. I sat at my kitchen table, reading it, muttering, a mansion? I just want to keep Gus out of Linda's hands. I knew I had to respond, not because I cared about the smears, but because I didn't want residents swayed by Linda's manipulation. I snapped photos of my road ownership contract, the county confirmation, and Linda's bill, then posted them to the neighborhood's Facebook group with the caption, $50,000 for grass and a gnome versus $3 to use my road. Who's the real robber? The post exploded instantly. Comments flooded in, from, I'd pay $3 to not hear Linda scream anymore, to, is that bill real? I got fined $100 for a fence an inch too tall. Mrs. Rosa, an elderly resident once fined by Linda for flying a Vietnamese flag in her yard, shared her story. She called my flag inappropriate decor. Ethan, keep going. But not everyone was on my side. A group of residents, led by Linda's loyal friends, started a private chat to complain that the toll booth was lowering property values and causing inconvenience. One even posted anonymously, calling me a selfish community wrecker. I read those comments, feeling stabbed in the back, but then Harold Brooks, the retired teacher with socks and sandals, messaged me privately. Don't worry, Ethan. They're just scared of Linda. Keep it up. You're doing right. I decided to turn up the heat. I printed more Carter Free Pass stickers and handed them out to anyone who signed a form confirming I wasn't in the HOA. Dozens of residents came to the toll booth, signed, and got stickers, some bringing cookies or coffee like I was running a charity stand. A teenager, Leo, even made a TikTok video about the booth, adding sound effects of car horns and remixing Linda's Rules Are Rules into a viral EDM track. You're a legend, Carter. Leo grinned, showing me the video. Linda, of course, didn't back down. She deleted promy comments on Facebook faster than you'd scrub a stain off a shirt. She sent mass emails, urging residents to unite against the highway robber. But the harder she tried, the more people grew sick of her. Rosa posted a photo of her Vietnamese flag back in her yard, with the hashtag Carter Road. Linda's smear campaign had split the neighborhood, but with every flyer she put up, every blog post she wrote, I felt the residents leaning more toward me. My toll booth, with Gus the gnome standing guard, wasn't just a legal punch at Linda, it was becoming a symbol of resistance. Carter Free Pass stickers popped up on cars all over the neighborhood, and Leo's TikTok video with Linda's remixed "Rules Are Rules" was spreading like wildfire. But I knew Linda wasn't the type to give up. She was the kind who'd burn the whole chessboard if she couldn't win, and I was right. That morning, I went to check the toll booth as usual, coffee mug in hand, ready to hand out stickers and chat with residents. But as I got closer, my heart sank. The automatic gate was leaning like a drunk, wires spilling out like a robot's guts, and the license plate camera lay smashed in the grass, broken like a dropped egg. The backup generator, which Frank and I had carefully installed, was disconnected, its cords sliced clean as if by professional shears. I stood there, coffee going cold, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage, and I knew exactly who was behind it. I checked the security system footage, but the main camera was disabled at 3 a.m., a blackout too perfect to be random. I called Officer Delgado, who'd handled a minor neighborhood dispute before. "Ethan, you okay?" he asked as I described the scene. "This is vandalism of private property. I'll send someone over." While waiting, I photographed everything, the broken gate, cut wires, smashed camera, and sent them to Frank. "We've been hit," I texted. Frank replied instantly. "Linda, who else? Planning repairs. Need anything else?" I texted back. "Motion sensors. And maybe a tiny bunker for Gus." Delgado arrived within an hour with another officer. He surveyed the scene, shaking his head. "This kind of wire cutting isn't amateur," he said, picking up a piece of the broken camera. "Got any enemies, Ethan?" I gave a dry laugh. "Linda Whitaker, HOA president. She called my toll booth a crime and just lost a Facebook war." Delgado raised an eyebrow. "Whitaker. She's had complaints for threatening an old lady over a holiday flag. I'll investigate, but you should beef up security." Frank and I got to work that afternoon, despite Florida's humid heat. We fixed the gate, replaced the wires, and installed a new motion sensor set that could detect a cat sneaking by. I hid a backup camera in a discreet corner, covered with camouflage netting, and hired a small security firm to patrol at night. "If Linda wants to play dirty," I told Frank, "she'll have to try harder." Frank grinned, clapping my shoulder. "You remind me of the time I built a fake fence to block a nosy neighbor's road. Keep the spirit, kid." Less than a day later, Linda sent a threatening letter, printed on HOA paper with a ridiculous eagle seal. "Cease and desist notice. Mr. Carter's illegal toll booth is causing traffic chaos and threatening community safety. Dismantle within 24 hours or face legal action." I read it, laughed, and taped it to the toll booth like a badge of honor. "Legal action?" I muttered to Gus. "She just trashed my camera, and now she's threatening to sue?" I snapped a photo of the letter, posted it to the Facebook group with the caption, "Linda's new love letter. Who wants to pay $15 to use her road?" The post drew dozens of comments. Rosa wrote, "She fined me $200 for my Vietnamese flag. Ethan, keep that booth." Harold Brooks added, "Broken camera? Sounds more like Linda than an accident." But a few residents still sided with Linda, one commenting anonymously, "This booth is trouble. Ethan should take it down before we all sue." I frowned, feeling betrayed. But then Leo, the TikTok kid, messaged, "Don't worry, Carter. I just remixed Linda's letter into a rap. Million views already." I laughed, feeling like I had an army backing me. Linda, unsurprisingly, was plotting dirtier moves. I heard from Harold that she held a secret meeting with Carl and Marjorie, discussing a bypass road through nearby public land. "She thinks if she can't beat you, she'll make you irrelevant," Harold said. I nodded, looking at Gus. "She wants a dirty war?" After the toll booth vandalism, I knew Linda was shifting from threats to outright dirty tactics, but I didn't expect her to be so reckless. With new motion sensors, hidden cameras, and a nighttime security patrol, my toll booth now resembled a small fortress, with Gus the gnome standing guard like a tiny warrior. But Linda didn't attack head-on anymore. Harold Brooks' rumor about her bypass road plan made me realize, if she couldn't destroy my booth, she'd try to make it obsolete. I decided to investigate. That night, I dusted off an old drone from my workshop, originally bought to check my roof, but now a spy tool. Under the moonlight, I flew the drone over the neighborhood, circling the public land near the edge of Sunnyvale Meadows where Harold said Linda was scheming. Sure enough, I spotted tire tracks and wooden stakes, like someone was marking a path. The drone's camera caught it all, a group of workers, no company signs, measuring under flashlights. I downloaded the footage, sent it straight to Mr. Larson, the city planning officer, with the caption, HOA digging on public land. No permits, right? The next morning, I was brewing coffee when Larson called back. Ethan, you're right, he said, his voice excited like he'd caught a big fish. That land is protected green space. No one can build on it, not even the HOA. I'm sending a team out now. I grinned, looking at Gus in the yard. Thanks, Larson. Say hi to Linda for me. 2 hours later, Harold texted. City planning trucks just showed up. Linda's screaming into her phone like she's been stung by bees. I laughed, picturing her red face as the workers were sent packing, and she got slapped with a $5,000 fine for unauthorized digging. But this victory wasn't just mine. Residents, once divided over the toll booth, started coming together. Rosa, after publicly sharing her story of being fined by Linda for her Vietnamese flag, hosted a meeting at her house. We're done with Linda and this HOA, Rosa said, passing around a petition to dissolve the HOA. Who signs? I buy coffee. I showed up, bringing a stack of Carter Free Pass stickers and a box of cookies from the toll booth's weekend coffee stand. Dozens of residents signed, from Harold with his socks and sandals to those who'd hesitated out of fear of Linda. I got fined $75 for a porch light with the wrong wattage, one said. She thinks she's the queen. To encourage them, I hung a new sign at the toll booth. Sign the HOA dissolution petition. Get a permanent Carter Free Pass. Residents lined up, signed, and got stickers, some posing for photos with Gus, now sporting a tiny superhero cape crocheted by Leo, the TikTok teen. Leo's remixed video, with Linda's Rules Are Rules line, was now at 1 million views, and he added a rap about the bypass fiasco. Linda dug dirt, but Ethan's got a drone. I laughed until my sides hurt watching it, texting Leo, you deserve a statue next to Gus. Linda, of course, didn't sit still. She sent mass emails, calling the petition Ethan Carter's plot to destroy the community. She raised HOA fees to cover legal costs, enraging even her loyalists. Fees doubled because she lost to Ethan, one resident commented on Facebook. I'm signing. Rosa posted a photo of the petition with dozens of signatures, the hashtag Carter Road trending across the group. Harold drove around, Carter Free Pass stickers plastered on his windshield, like a victory flag. This weekend, I turned my coffee stand into a community event, inviting everyone to enjoy free gnome brew and cookies. Residents gathered, sharing stories of Linda's finds, from holiday flags to chalk drawings on sidewalks. For the first time, the neighborhood felt like a real community, not a prison run by Linda. An elderly lady slipped a homemade loaf of bread into my hands, whispering, Thank you, Ethan. I hung my American flag yesterday, and no one dared find me. Linda's failed bypass scheme had stripped her of credibility in the residents' eyes. Now, my toll booth was the heart of a community movement. With Rose's HOA dissolution petition gaining dozens of signatures, Carter Free Pass stickers covering cars, and the weekend coffee stand a regular meetup, I felt like I was leading a small revolution, with Gus the Gnome as the mascot. But what kept me on edge were Harold's rumors about Linda's legal plan. She wasn't the type to give up easily, and I knew if Linda was desperate, she'd drag everyone down with her. One evening, while checking the toll booth's motion sensors, my phone pinged with an email from a strange address, sunnywatch47@randommail.com. No subject, no text, just an attachment. I opened it cautiously, expecting a virus or one of Leo's goofy memes. But no, it was a scanned document, claiming to be a road use agreement between me and the HOA, with my signature, dated 5 years ago. The problem? I'd never signed such a thing. The signature looked like it was drawn by a drunk cat, riddled with typos, and the HOA seal, with the eagle holding clippers, was clearly fake. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like I'd found Linda's smoking gun. I called my lawyer, Nancy, a sharp woman who once sued an airline for putting too much ice in her water, and won. This is blatant fraud, Nancy said, her voice crackling with excitement as I sent the document. If Linda submits this to the county, she's committing document forgery. Print it, mark every error, and go public now. I did, printing the document, circling errors in red, Sunnyvale misspelled as Sunnyvale, the sloppy signature, the wrong date format, and comparing it to my real signature on the home purchase contract. It was like comparing a Picasso to a kindergarten scribble. I decided to bring this work of art to the community meeting the next evening, where Linda was set to explain the bypass road and HOA fee hikes. The community center was packed, the air tense as a tightrope. Linda stood before the crowd, mirrored sunglasses glinting, holding a stack of files like it was the Ten Commandments. Carl and Marjorie stood behind her, Carl staring at the floor like he wanted to vanish, Marjorie nodding to Linda's every word. "Dear residents," Linda began, her voice shrill, "Ethan Carter is destroying our community with his illegal toll booth. But I have good news. We filed a lawsuit to dismantle it and protect your rights." I walked in, carrying a poster board with the fake document blown up, red marks glaring. The room went silent, only the sound of my shoes on the wood floor. "Sorry to interrupt, Linda," I said, setting the board in front of the crowd. "But before you sue me, care to explain this?" I pointed to the document, circling Sunnyvale, and the fake signature. A road use agreement I never signed, with a fake HOA seal. "Someone's trying to steal my road, and I'm betting it's not Harold." Residents murmured, some standing to look closer. Rosa shouted, "Linda, you forged papers? Shame on you." Harold waved his Carter-free pass sticker like a victory flag. Linda stammered, her sunglasses slipping down her nose. This is slander," she screamed, pointing at me. "I have a judge in the family, and he'll order that toll booth banned." I smiled, pulled out my phone, and projected a 2007 article onto the room screen. "Ex-judge disbarred for falsifying traffic records." The name matched Linda's relative. "Your family member, right?" I asked, my voice calm. "He hasn't been a judge since I was in high school." The room erupted in laughter and boos. Linda clutched her files, her face pale. "You're ruining this community," she screamed, but no one was listening anymore. An elderly woman near Rosa stood. "You fined me $150 for the wrong color roses, Linda." "I'm with Ethan." Carl coughed, backing away, while Marjorie whispered something to Linda. Eyes panicked. I set the document on the table like a defused bomb. "This is proof of fraud," I said. "And I've sent it to the county." "Linda, want to sue? Go ahead." That night, Nancy and I filed a counter lawsuit, demanding $187,000 for 18 years of the HOA using my road without payment, with the fake document as evidence. Rosa wrote, "Linda forged papers? She's done." Leo dropped a new TikTok video with a rap. Linda faked a signature, but Ethan's got the law. Residents began refusing to pay HOA fees, and Rosa's dissolution petition surpassed half the signatures needed. At the community meeting, I'd exposed Linda Whitaker's forged document, rocking the neighborhood. My poster board, with the sloppy fake signature and Sunnyvale typo circled in red, stood as an undeniable indictment. Linda, her sunglasses slipping and her screams losing power, had completely lost control. Rosa's HOA dissolution petition was just shy of the needed signatures, and my toll booth, with Gus the Gnome in his superhero cape, had become a symbol of freedom. But as I suspected, Linda wasn't one to slink away quietly. She went all in, and that was her final mistake. A week later, the HOA called an emergency meeting to restore order. I wasn't invited, but Harold Brooks texted, "Linda's freaking out. Ethan. She's got something big. Get here." I showed up at the community center, carrying my road ownership contract and a coffee mug, my favorite weapon. The room was packed, residents whispering like it was a boxing match. Linda stood at the mic, files in hand, her voice shrill as a siren. "Ethan Carter is a threat to our community," she screamed. "He's not only running an illegal toll booth, but he's slandering me with fake documents. But we'll win, because I have the law on my side." I stood, holding up the contract. "I'm not in the HOA, Linda," I said, my voice steady. "And about fake documents, I sent yours to the county. Oh, and I'm also a victim of toll booth vandalism. Care to explain the smashed camera?" Residents murmured, Rosa shouting, "Speak. Linda, did you cut the wires?" Linda gripped the mic, her face flaming. But before she could scream, the room's door swung open. Officer Delgado walked in, with another officer and a plainclothes investigator. The room went silent, only the sound of Linda's sunglasses hitting the floor. "Linda Whitaker," Delgado said, his voice low, "we have a warrant for your arrest for vandalism of private property, misappropriation of HOA funds, document forgery, and conspiracy to build illegally on public land." Residents gasped. Linda stammered, You can't be serious." Delgado nodded. "We're very serious. You can come quietly, or we'll add resisting arrest." Linda looked around, as if expecting Carl or Marjorie to jump in and save her. But Carl stared at the floor, and Marjorie backed away, hands up like she was saying, "I'm clean." I caught Linda's eye as she was led out, a glare of pure hatred, like I'd stolen her throne. But I didn't steal anything. I just took back what was mine. The room exploded as the door closed. Rosa clapped, Harold whistled, and Leo, the TikTok kid, filmed, shouting, "Linda's going to jail, Gus reigns supreme." I smiled, but relief quickly gave way to resolve. Linda might be gone, but the HOA wasn't dead yet. I stood, holding up Rosa's petition. "Residents," I said, "Linda's done, but the HOA is still here. Who wants to end it?" The applause was deafening, and right there, residents voted to dissolve the HOA. Carl, trembling at the mic, announced, We're dissolving the board. Ethan Carter owns the road, and we're sorry for targeting him." Residents cheered, and I felt a warmth spread through me. Harold slipped a beer from the weekend stand into my hand, winking. "You did it, kid." Rosa hugged me, whispering, "Thank you for my flag." Leo posted the vote video on TikTok with hashtag Carter Road and the caption, "Gnome wins, HOA loses." The video hit 1 million views in hours, and the Facebook group flooded with comments. "Party at the toll booth. Gus needs a monument." That night, I threw a party at the toll booth, with LED lights flashing and gnome brew flowing freely, bringing a joyful and warm atmosphere. Residents came with cakes, beers, and a massive handwritten banner, "Linda Free Zone." Gus, in his superhero cape, was placed proudly on a small wooden pedestal, like a symbol of freedom. An elderly lady who recounted being fined by Linda for planting roses, now boasting a yard full of red blooms. A dad showed off his sidewalk, where his daughter had created colorful chalk drawings. With Linda Whitaker arrested and the Sunnyvale Meadows HOA officially dissolved, residents felt liberated from a long-standing burden. My toll booth, once a battleground, had become the heart of a new community, a place no longer ruled by absurd fines and rigid rules. Gus the gnome, in his superhero cape, stood on his little wooden pedestal by the booth, a symbol of victory. Residents celebrated with the party, enjoying gnome brew, and raising the Linda Free Zone banner, but in my heart, I knew my story had changed this place, and things would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood blossomed. Lawns sprouted gnomes, from tiny firefighters to wee wizards. Mailboxes were painted every color, blue, red, even one with an American flag pattern. Rosa flew a Vietnamese flag twice as big, and no one dared fine her. Harold Brooks put up a decorative windmill in his yard, because it's cool, he said, winking. Residents formed a new community council, with no silly rules, just organizing barbecues and outdoor movie nights. I stood at the booth, watching people gather, feeling like I'd finally found a real neighborhood. My weekend coffee stand became a regular event, with flashing LED lights and Leo's remixed music. Linda's Rules Are Rules, now an EDM chorus. Residents brought cakes, beers, and kids who drew chalk art on my road, once called Vandalism by Linda. One morning, a boy biked by, looked at the toll booth, and asked, "You still charging?" I laughed, handing him a Carter Free Pass sticker. "Only if the HOA comes back, kid," I replied. He grinned, pedaled off, and I knew I'd left a legacy. I got a letter from a neighborhood in Tampa, inviting me to speak about fighting tyrannical HOAs. I laughed, setting the letter beside Gus, now with a small plaque reading, "Knight of the Road, Guardian of Freedom." The toll booth still stands, no longer charging, just a gathering spot and a reminder that no one controls us. Rosa gave me a photo of the whole neighborhood around the booth, holding stickers, with Gus in the center. "Thank you, Ethan," she wrote on the back. "You gave us freedom." One afternoon, I sat under the Linda Free Zone banner. No more red flyers, no $50,000 bill, no Linda. Harold passed by, his socks and sandals gleaming in the sun. "You're a legend, Ethan," he said, handing me a beer. I smiled, clinking cans with him. "No, Harold. We're the legends." The war didn't end with fireworks or speeches, but with something better: freedom, community, and the sweet joy of living well when your enemy's gone. I looked at Gus, his cape fluttering in the breeze, and thought, sometimes, all it takes is a toll booth, a stubborn spirit, and a little gnome named Gus to take down a tyrant. The story of Ethan Carter and his battle with Linda Whitaker in Sunnyvale Meadows reflects a common reality in America today: the clash between individual rights and collective control, especially in neighborhoods dominated by homeowners associations (HOAs). The details in the story, from the $50,000 bill for grass, a mailbox, and the gnome Gus, to Linda's smear campaign, vandalism, and forged documents, highlight how some HOAs abuse power, imposing absurd rules on residents. Ethan's actions, from verifying his road ownership, setting up the toll booth, to exposing the fake document, showcase a spirit of resistance and community unity, core values in American culture. The support from Rosa, Harold, and Leo, along with the Carter Free Pass stickers and viral TikTok videos, show the power of social media and solidarity in challenging injustice. The ending, with a free neighborhood full of gnomes and colorful mailboxes, underscores the desire for personal freedom and creativity. Stand up for your rights when facing unjust control, but do it smartly and together. Ethan didn't just rely on owning the road. He used legal documents, social media, and resident support to win. In today's America, you can apply this lesson by thoroughly researching contracts and local laws when dealing with HOAs, using platforms like Facebook to share your story, and building alliances with neighbors. Don't let the Lindas silence you. Learn from Ethan, use persistence, creativity, and a touch of humor, like Gus, to protect your freedom and community. Subscribe to follow Ethan and Gus's journey defending freedom in Sunnyvale Meadows. Thank you for your support, and see you in the next video with more stories of victory.